The Norco branch of the Security Pacific National Bank, located in the city of Norco in Riverside County, California, about 50 miles east of the city of Los Angeles. On May 9, 1980, one of the most daring and spectacular bank robberies to occur in the United States took place here. 5 heavily armed men would commit a robbery at this bank that would result in 2 of the suspects being killed, 1 Riverside County sheriff killed, 8 other police officers wounded, 33 police vehicles damaged or completely destroyed, 1 sheriff's jet helicopter shot down, and numerous civilians shot at. Gunfire would damage several private cars and homes. The leader of the armed robbers was this man, George Wayne Smith, age 29. He is the only member to have served in the military. Smith served 2 years in the Army Artillery before being honorably discharged. Not much is known about any of the 5 suspects, as none of them had any significant criminal record of any kind except for minor drug charges. George Smith worked for the city of Cypress, California, as a maintenance man. He is a known and admitted anarchist who often spoke of overthrowing the American government. Christopher Greg Harvin, 27 years old, worked with George Smith as a maintenance man for the city of Fountain Valley. He served 1 month in the Army before being dishonorably discharged. Chris Harvin and George Smith would both lose their jobs and move to Miraloma, California, where they would live together for about 1 year. Russell Aaron Harvin, age 26, is the younger brother of Chris Harvin. He was living with his parents in Anaheim, California, prior to the robbery. It's believed that he had no known job or trade. Belisario Delgado, age 17, was the only juvenile involved in the robbery. He was the first person killed during the robbery. He was not going to school and did not have a permanent address or residence. Manuel David Delgado, age 21, was the older brother of Belisario Delgado. He was the last person killed or wounded as a result of the robbery. His last known residence was in Garden Grove, California. It was at this house, 10314 50th Street in Miraloma, where the plan and preparations would take place to commit the bank robbery. Both George Smith and Chris Harvin had been living here for about 1 year. Smith and Harvin strung barbed wire around the outside of a corrugated aluminum shack at the rear of their residence as they were trying to protect and conceal the some 300 marijuana plants that they were growing there. They dug a tunnel that ran beneath the backyard shack and the garage in the main residence. It's believed that the tunnel was an escape route to get out of the residence should the police ever come to arrest them for anything. Neither the residence nor the tunnel would be part of an escape plan for the bank robbery. It would be at this residence where the 5 suspects would plan the Norco bank robbery about a week and a half prior to it taking place. George Smith, who had a bank account at the Security Pacific National Bank, would case the bank himself. As the leader, Smith would draw up actual maps and plans to commit the robbery. The plan would include reading up on military tactics. They would use walkie-talkies to communicate with one another during the robbery, such as this one found later on. The suspects would carry much heavier weapons during the robbery than the ones seen here that were left behind. The suspects were planning to heavily equip themselves to commit the robbery and keep from being caught. This empty crate found in the suspect's residence once contained 1,000 rounds of 5.56 millimeter ammunition, 1,500 rounds of .223, and 500 rounds of .308, all of which would be taken and used during the robbery. Throughout the house, hundreds of various rounds were left behind. The suspects were more daring than most other bank robbers. These suspects would build in their garage a series of hand grenades and incendiary devices that could be launched like a mortar out of a shotgun barrel or hand thrown. Found in their garage were such elements as gasoline, smokeless gunpowder, glass bottles, PVC pipe, metal pipe and highway flares, masking tape and hand light fuses. As viewed upon in this drawing, you see the construction of the shotgun-launched grenades. Essentially, it was an inner core of PVC pipe that contained packed gunpowder, which was surrounded by shrapnel consisting of broken glass, cement nails, and bullet heads. It was contained within a metal beer can that was wrapped with masking tape. The launching would be made possible with an attached 19-inch long and 5/8-inch wide wooden dowel that could be inserted into the barrel of a 12-gauge shotgun and launched by using a shotgun shell with the pellets removed. The effective range is 100 yards. In this scene, we see the internal part of a hand-thrown grenade and the inner core of the grenade. In the drawing, you see a shotgun-launched incendiary device. It's simply a glass bottle containing gasoline that has a wood base and dowel connected to it in one end, with a cloth wick taped on at the other end. It would be launched just as the grenade. Here is one hand-thrown type incendiary device that was made by the suspects. These are a group of the actual explosive devices that could be hand-thrown or shotgun-launched. With all their planning and preparation, the suspects would set out on May 9th, 1980, to rob the Norco Security Pacific Bank. They would take with them all the mentioned grenades and ammunition, plus these heavy weapons to do the job. On the morning of May 9, 1980, suspects Manny Delgado, Belisario Delgado, and Russell Harvin went to the Brea shopping mall in Orange County to steal a van-type vehicle to perform the robbery. Unfortunately for Gary Harala of Beaumont, California, he drove his 1979 Dodge Tradesman van into the parking lot of Sears at the Brea Mall. The three suspects would steal the van and take Gary Harala with them. The suspects did not want to release Gary for fear that he would report the van stolen and the whole plan would fail before it could get started. Gary was placed in the back of the van where he was bound, gagged, and blindfolded. The three suspects drove the van to the city of Corona, just south of Norco. They were communicating by walkie-talkie with the other suspects, George Smith and Chris Harvin. Now that the van was loaded, the 5 armed gunmen put to work the plan to rob the Security Pacific Bank in Norco. The plan would be to place an explosive device on a gas main to a building under construction at the south end of the city of Norco. This was a fuse-like device that, if exploded, would have set off a tremendous explosion, creating an effective diversion. Both firemen and Riverside County sheriffs would have been diverted to that area, leaving the rest of Norco unattended. Once a successful diversion had taken place, the gunmen would commit the robbery of the Norco Security Pacific Bank at 4th and Hamner. The suspects would be wearing disguises, so no photographs could be made of their faces. After the robbery, the gunmen would go to the north end of the city, where they would leave the van and get into 2 of their own vehicles. These vehicles would be equipped with camping gear, extra ammunition, and one .375 H&H Magnum rifle with a scope on it. The suspects would split up and leave the area from this location. The gunmen set out to initiate their plan at about 15:30 hours, 3:30 p.m., May 9th, 1980. The bomb was placed and the fuse was lit. The bomb, however, did not explode. This was not the only failure for the gunmen that took place this date. The gunmen decided to commit the robbery, even though the diversion did not work. At about 3:30 p.m., the suspects drove the van up to the north door of the Security Pacific Bank. The bank parking lot was full with parked cars and people trying to do their business inside the bank. In broad daylight, the suspects get out of the stolen van wearing their camouflage parkas and ski masks over their heads to conceal their faces. The suspects deploy inside the bank. Manny Delgado jumps on top of the teller's counter carrying the short-stock 12-gauge shotgun with an 8-shot extended magazine tube. Russell Harvin covers the west door and is carrying a short-stock AR-15. George Smith acts as a rover, giving all the commands. He is carrying an HK-91. Chris Harvin, carrying an HK-93, locates the bank manager, taking him to the vault and obtaining $20,000 in cash. Belisario Delgado, as driver of the van, remains to maintain a fast getaway. When the suspects first got out of the van upon arriving at the Security Pacific Bank, a teller from the Redlands Federal Savings Bank across the street noticed the gunman enter the bank and telephoned the Riverside County Sheriff's Department. Simultaneous to the bank robbery in progress was a silent alarm that was activated inside the Security Pacific Bank. The alarm notification, however, was sent to the Corona Police Department, who sent police units to the Security Pacific Bank in Corona, which is 5 miles away. The Redlands Federal Bank teller across the street from Security Pacific Bank was successful in contacting the Riverside Sheriff's Department, and an emergency broadcast was made to sheriff's units assigned to Norco. Unit 3, Edward 50, with Deputy Glenn Belaski, was presently at 4th and Hamner. Listen to how quick the response was on this copy of the Riverside Sheriff's radio tape.
Riverside to Norco units have a 211 in progress at the Security Pacific Bank, 4th and Hamner.
A 3-hour 50, 1097.
3-hour 50, 1097. Riverside dog, clear the air.
As Deputy Belaski turns onto 4th Street from Hamner, he hasn't realized the fact that this was an in-progress call versus a silent alarm. While driving eastbound on 4th, Deputy Belaski hears a lot of loud noises that he thinks are the sound of broken bottles hitting the ground. He has not realized that the suspects are now outside of the bank and are shooting the red and blue light bar of his unit. Deputy Belaski turns into the north driveway of the bank and confronts the suspects face to face from about 15 feet away. When the gunmen fire a fusillade of bullets into the front of the unit, Belaski broadcasts that he has been hit.
Considering the description, it's a green van, it's 4th and Hamner, they are shooting.
Who's been hit?
Officer hit, clear the air, 1199.
Deputy Belaski backs his unit out of the driveway and spins out on 4th Street and collides with a private vehicle. Belaski comes on the air again.
Who's been shot? 4th and Hamner. 9 shot. 22 on route.
200 up. 72 copy. 1 copy. Pulling from Marshall, am I right? You're not rolling ambulance.
Some help, buddy.
Ambulance responding.
Deputy Belaski gets out of his unit with his shotgun in hand. He takes up a position at the rear of the unit and prepares for the suspects to drive out of the driveway he has just come out of. The suspects get into the van and proceed out of the driveway. As the van passes Deputy Belaski's unit, a firefight takes place. The gunmen start shooting out the back end of the van and through the rear doors and windows. From an initial distance of 25 yards between Deputy Belaski's unit and a getaway van, the firefight is fierce. Deputy Belaski's unit is torn apart by several volleys of gunfire from the gunmen's heavy weapons. Deputy Belaski returns fire by discharging his 12-gauge shotgun 4 times at the getaway van. Belaski's return fire is accurate. Belisario Delgado, the driver of the van, is struck by 1 pellet of Belaski's number 4 buck ammunition. He is hit just behind the right ear and becomes instantly paralyzed. The front windshield explodes from the inside as pellets pass from the back of the van to the front of it. Suspect George Smith is struck by one of the shotgun pellets in the groin area while he's still inside the van. The getaway van drifts uncontrollably into a chain-link fence on the north side of 4th Street across from the Security Pacific Bank. The remaining gunmen exit the van by the right side double doors, and they begin to gather as many heavy weapons, ammunition, and homemade hand grenades as they can carry. Belisario Delgado is left in the van as it appears he is dead. As the gunmen collect what they can from the van, Deputy Andy Delgado, no relation to the 2 suspect brothers, arrives at the scene, parking his unit facing southbound in the northbound lanes of traffic. His unit is positioned 60 yards north of the suspect's position. Deputy Delgado gets out of his unit with his shotgun in his hand. From Deputy Delgado's position looking south toward the suspects, he can see the suspects through the chain-link fence as they are firing on Deputy Belaski in an easterly direction. Deputy Delgado begins firing 9 rounds of shotgun ammunition at the suspects from the 60-yard distance and through the chain-link fence. Deputy Belaski, who is still under intense fire, discharges 3 rounds of .38 caliber ammunition from his service revolver back at the suspects. The suspects are now in a crossfire, but both Deputy Delgado and Deputy Belaski are 60 yards from them. Bulaski is attempting to obtain more ammunition from the front seat area of his unit when he is struck by 1 or 2 rounds from the suspect's rifles. He is struck in the right arm near the elbow, and a large vein is severed. He is also struck by several small fragments of rifle bullets on the right shoulder and upper arm area. He begins to bleed profusely. Deputy Bulaski broadcasts that he is injured, and a noticeable sound of worry is detected in his voice. Deputy Chuck Hill arrives at the scene from a westbound direction on 4th Street, and his unit is immediately hit by rifle fire.
59, we're taking fire now.
259, 10-9.
Being fired upon.
259, copy. Riverside all units at the location are being fired upon.
Unit's been hit.
Deputy Hill turns right and heads north up a private driveway where he parks his unit. He gets out of his unit and sees Deputy Bulaski calling for help.
I'm bleeding bad. I got an artery hit. I need help.
The remaining 4 gunmen run from the getaway van to a yellow Ford pickup truck that was stopped for a red light in the northbound number 1 lane of Hamner at 4th Street. The driver of the pickup, seeing the gunman run toward him, abandons the vehicle with the engine running and goes across the street to Carl's Jr. for safety. Deputy Hill, at the same time, leaves his position by the house and decides to go to Deputy Bulaski's aid. Bulaski makes another radio broadcast.
350, the suspects are stranded, their vehicle's disabled, and Hammer and Ford. For all help, I need an ambulance, I'm bleeding badly.
Affirmative, ambulance en route.
Roll big or anybody.
Deputy Hill runs across 4th Street into the open and safely reaches Deputy Bulaski. He takes Bulaski's handgun and reloads it for him. 3 live rounds are dropped onto the ground. Hill also puts his hand over Bulaski's wounded arm to try and stop the bleeding. He then escorts Bulaski to a group of trees on the south side of 4th Street where a measure of cover is provided. Deputy Hill leaves Deputy Bulaski by the trees, then runs north across 4th Street again to get to his own unit. Hill safely gets to his unit, whereby he drives back to Bulaski's position and picks him up. Hill then transports Bulaski to Corona Community Hospital. He leaves eastbound on 4th, avoiding the suspect.